getting everything set up. I should have been here like 5 minutes ago, but I had to desperately record a video. So hopefully we'll have the other participants very soon. And sorry, apparently I'm getting sick because I guess, immunocompromised. I have no idea what's going on. But hey, everybody. Also, great news by a margin of 2 votes, people. 2 votes. The impeachment effort against Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas failed. So Republicans take another L. It's not looking good for them, folks. It's really not. Actual substance. What's up, man? What's up, Ed? Failed. Totally failed. There's nothing quite like seeing Marjorie Taylor Greene take an L. God, I hope that cough goes away by the time of this Ohio event. Last thing I want to do is be hacking into the faces of people who are trying to get registered to vote. Doc in Paradise says, I didn't know you did live streams. I very rarely do. So right now, full disclosure, I work a day job. That's going to be changing in about 10 days. So I should have more free time. I hope to actually use it to like sleep occasionally, go to the gym, see friends. But I also want to put out additional content like regular live streams in which I can cover other events. So like there's so many things that I like to talk about with you guys that can't make their way into individual videos because they're not relevant to the broader topic, but you still need to talk about or still need to know about. Like, for example, in Wisconsin, um, now that those heavily gerrymandered Republican maps have dropped, right? They were struck down. Republicans still control the Wisconsin legislature, so they are the ones who will at least attempt to draw new maps. And so it's going to be challenged again, right? And so the Wisconsin Supreme Court may end up seeing these maps as well. So that's stuff you probably can't fit into a 10-minute video, but it could be part of like a regular live stream situation. Can they pass anything? Pff, doesn't seem to be. This is the least productive iteration of Congress in, I think, since the Great Depression. Since the iteration of Congress that existed at the beginning of the Great Depression, and the only reason that one um, is, I mean, that one I think they only met for like 4 months out of the year, right? And so actually, pound for pound, like they were more productive because they actually passed more bills in 4 months or than the this iteration of the Republicans and the House majority have passed all year. Good to see you, everybody. I'll be right back. I'm going to grab something caffeinated. Be right back. Let's see here. Waiting on some of the guests. Yeah, so let's take a look while we're waiting on people on the House vote. Let's see here. How do I share screen? Spend such a minute. All I want to do is take a minute. Just take your time. No, we don't need the audio. Do you all hear an echo? What's up, Arian? How's my audio? Because sometimes when I share like these tabs, things don't work right. Arian, how about the immunity the immunity decision? Whew, man, let me tell you, that took entirely too long. That took a month for the DC 3-judge panel to decide, which is about they're 31 days in a month. That's about 30 and a half days too long. That should have been a one sentence decision. They shouldn't, honestly, I would have told judges, like if I had been one of the judges or the judges, I'd have told Trump's attorneys, you guys don't even have to leave. Just like step outside the courtroom for like 5 minutes because we just need to type this obvious decision up. But yeah, it's great news, man. Ken and Eric say good audio, so that's good. Okay, so yeah, I saw this. Hang on one second. Why is it? What was the final vote on this? I thought it was by 2 votes. Let's do Aaron Rupar, my go-to guys for clips. 214 to 216, the attempt to impeach Secretary Mayorkas failed. I mean, folks, listen, regardless of how you feel about the border, it's simply a fact that they had no cognizable basis for impeachment. You got to remember, it's treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors, not, well, I don't like his policy. He's letting too many of them migrants into the country. It's not an impeachable offense. Which, by the way, maybe if we had a more robustly reformed immigration system, if we had better funding and resources and manpower at the border, maybe that wouldn't be an issue. Beth Dietz. I think the court wanted their decision to be unimpeachable, so to speak. I see what you did there. That's a great pun. You win the pun war so far. It'll die in the Senate. Yeah, I mean, even if the impeachment passed, they need a 2/3 majority to win in the to actually convict Secretary Mayorkas of an impeachable offense. This guy should be fired, by the way. Postmaster General DeJoy, because he was a Trump appointee, and I'm pretty sure, like right before the 2020 election, he was like defunding or like slow walking various things, which was causing an issue with absentee ballots and vote by mail. Question: do you think the delay was enough to prevent the rest of the cases from going forward before November? No, but it certainly, I mean, I think the March beginning of the trial date is certainly in jeopardy, right? I don't think a month is going to cost like that it would have that much of a ripple effect because we have 9 months for the trial to begin. Well, 9 months for the trial to begin and conclude, right? Like no one in their right mind believed that the trial the trial would begin, conclude, and that like there would be no appeals, right? So even if the trial was done by now, Trump would be appealing the result if a DC court found him guilty of the January 6th insurrection. So I don't think it delayed it like that, but it was still an unnecessary delay. Arian says MAGA lost their mind on the crumbly guilty verdict. Hint, don't give your disturbed minor child a gun for hobby. Try stamp collecting. So full disclosure, this is how, like, folks, this is where my head is. Like, again, working a full-time job. And then I also write articles 3 a day for one Lucas J. Beasley. I don't think that's his middle initial, but he's great. Obviously, he helped me out so much. 3 articles a day for his political website and then 3 videos a day here. I genuinely have no idea what this Crumbly case is. I've just seen the headline. So Arian, you usually help me out on Twitter by sending me like things to keep in mind. So you may have to point all that stuff out to me. You are one hell of a litigator. You should be moving up there with the big boys. I appreciate that. This channel has experienced some tremendous growth in a relatively short amount of time, thanks to you all. And I appreciate that very much. Luke has a lot of content. Oh my God. Yeah. And like it's only beginning. Like he just launched today a new series where he works with Aaron Parnas on his channel. I think it'll be like a regular thing. And Aaron Parnas is an attorney giving a legal perspective in addition to Luke's political commentary. You should definitely check that out. They had a great video about the Trump immunity case. Yeah. Actually, the actual substance says, yeah, the appeals process would be taking place, but he'd still deal with the stain of a conviction. Yeah, and I still think he might. It's entirely possible for the trial to begin and a conviction to be rendered by the time of the election. And the polling indicates, whatever it's worth, that Republicans, a sufficient number, statistically relevant number of Republicans, would not vote for Donald Trump if he were convicted of any of his crimes. Which the cognitive dissonance there is fascinating to me because you think about it. MAGA Republicans say the Justice Department is weaponized against Trump and the justice system has been weaponized against Trump. So why would a conviction by that same legal process matter? I guess I won't look a gift horse in the mouth, but it is interesting. It seems to suggest a degree of inconsistency. Sorry for having Mike Johnson's face up here that long. I didn't realize it. People probably lost their appetites. Jasmine Crockett. I love her. This is insanity. We're on the floor. MAGA Mike is upset he can't deliver for Daddy Trump and holding us on the floor where the vote is tied 215 to 215, which means the BS impeachment fails. Gosh, she's the best. This freshman class of Democratic Congress people, Jasmine Crockett, Jared Moskowitz, Dan Goldman, Maxwell Frost, solid. Let's see. Sorry, I only have one screen now because I like changed my setup. I've got my camera here, and I usually like will drag it over, but then it becomes too small. So I'm using like my big editing monitor. Let's see. Who says the Supreme Court will even take the case? Right? Exactly. They're not obligated to grant certiorari on this. So they may just say to hell with this. We're just gonna refer you to the DC Appellate Court's decision, and good luck, Donnie. Let's see. Oh, so much good here. Like I said, the other people, at least one of the guests, will be here in just a few minutes. But yeah, this is actually, I mean, the purpose of the stream. Oh, sorry. Definitely don't want people to lose their appetites by seeing Donald. The purpose of the stream is to talk about the Ohio February voter drive, voter registration drive. So it's part of like this deep canvassing operation that the community of, I assume you guys know him because he's a lot bigger than me, but I also know like my grandma watches the stream and she probably doesn't watch a lot of streamers. But Destiny, his community has been involved in electoral politics for the last several election cycles, going, I think, all the way back to 2020, where he gets people out to vote, pays a considerable sum of money out of his own pocket to get people to to help register people to vote and get out the vote and things like that. And so I worked with him in 2022 in Georgia during the midterm elections. And then I worked with his community in a group called Progressive Victory, political group, in March and April of 2023 in Wisconsin. Dead cold in Wisconsin, but we had to get Janet Protasewicz elected. And they're collaborating again for this Ohio canvassing event, which is basically it's a voter registration drive to get voters, eligible voters, to register to vote ahead of the election. Social Society with Brandon Clark. By the way, I mentioned this guy in the community page. He is great. This guy is putting out the grind. I think he's like in terms of like his output, the quality of his output, and the frequency of his output. He's up there with Luke and probably past me. He's great. You should definitely check his channel out. And Brandon, you should stick around or follow the links. And I know they're unless something's changed in the past 15 minutes, they're always looking for additional hands on deck. So yeah, we're gonna be talking more about that as soon as somebody shows up. And again, people may be popping in and out over the next couple of minutes. I don't really plan on doing this past like an hour, but I just want people to be able to ask questions and get those questions answered by some of the organizers and main participants. Brandon, there's a sign up link. But again, unfortunately, like I've been like so slammed, I just do what I'm told when they're like, "Hey, we need you here on this day and whatever." Otherwise, I'm not sure exactly. I know there's a sign up link that I've been putting out. I think it's still valid. Um, and Brandon, check your Discord, by the way. While we're waiting on people, I may have you pop in for just a few minutes so you can tell people about yourself. And then obviously when the other guests come in, you can tap out so I can focus on the Ohio thing. But I just sent you a link if you want to jump in real quick. Let's see. Um, the actual substance. I think this is the democratic political activism that has been needed in this party. I hope so, man. I'll be honest with you. I actually enjoy doing the door knocking. Like it's and something I will say from personal experience, it does help. It does matter. That sort of engagement with people on the day to day. Not everybody watches political streams or obsesses about things on YouTube the way I do. So it's good to get out and remind people. And by the way, when you knock on doors to get people to vote, most of the time people don't answer, right? Because either they're busy or they're distracted, or maybe they just don't want to answer. But when people do answer, it's not like you have to debate your political issues. You shouldn't. You should not have some sort of adversarial situation. So it's not like a situation where only extroverts who are C-SPAN addicts are really good at door knocking. You're there to provide information, occasionally hand out a flyer which has like the information on it, let them know where they can register to vote. That's what it is. It's not like you're engaging in like door-to-door political debates. Adam Mockler, what's up, man?
What's up, Josiah, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Let me switch here because I always hate this. Like it always defaults and puts the other person like we're back to back. Hey, lean back to back real quick. It'd be like
Oh,
oh
no
yeah.
problem.
Somebody screenshot that. It's like, what's up? Yeah.
Does
How
my
are you,
microphone
man?
sound okay?
Yeah, you sound great. Does he sound
Okay.
okay?
I'm doing well. How about you? Are you ready to register some voters and secure that 51st Senate seat?
Oh man, dude, can you imagine? Imagine like not only do we defend every competitive seat, which by the way, folks, we'll get into why that's extremely important, but also like we expand it. Like imagine like an Obama era 60-person supermajority where we could just cram progressive legislation just down the throats of those Republicans. Probably not going to happen, but it's good to dream.
I mean, it's a good thing to work for, and all we can do
Mhm.
right now is execute on the field and convert voters, convert independent voters, and I think we can actually work there. Maybe not this election cycle, but eventually, right?
No, 100%. And by the way, I'm sure many of you know who Adam is. He is like doing all these epic like conversations and discussions, and I would argue some conversions, I think it's fair to say, with Trump supporters at Trump rallies. So he's at the front line of the MAGA movement on our
Cool.
side.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, the goal is like less to convert, but just to plant those seeds of doubt in people's heads sometimes, because we had a long conversation about this, but like the MAGA movement is very far gone, but there is a section of people in there that can be leaned over, like can be converted to the other side, or they're just not sure. There's a large segment of independent voters who I've talked to, and once you explain to them, like, do you prefer the Constitution or Donald Trump? They'll be like, oh, the Constitution every time. And it's like, well, Donald Trump wanted to subvert the Constitution. He wanted Mike Pence to do that. So you can explain to them, kind of bring them over in these ways, if that makes sense. Yeah.
No, yeah, no. Listen, man. Again, like your videos, Luke's videos when he goes out and does that stuff. I think it's awesome. Like I have my experience with like day to day conversations with MAGA is basically confined to family and friends.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even sure, and I consider myself pretty well spoken. I'm not entirely sure I'm equipped for it. I think it takes a certain type of like superhuman patience and empathy. I think you're killing it, man. Is it stressful? Are you scared ever? Do you have fun? Is it a mix of emotions?
I have some footage from the last rally. It was the most scared I've ever been. Maybe I'll show it to you at some point. Maybe we'll do it on stream, like at some point. I'll show it to you this weekend, actually. And there was a massive group of Trump supporters surrounding me. And some dude came up and grabbed my hand. And I kind of had a destiny moment. I was like, don't touch me, bro. And he like backed off. And there was it was pretty insane. But broadly speaking, like, do I get the most nervous part is kind of like driving there when you don't know what to expect. But once you get on the field and you start to establish your presence there, everybody starts to sort of like, okay, this kid's cool. He's not like, he doesn't mean any harm. And it's a little more chill once you get established at the rally.
That's really, really good. I'm sorry, I've got a persistent cough, which I hope goes away. But so yeah, Adam also just indicated there he's going to be at the Ohio canvassing event this weekend, February 10th and 11th. I'm going to bring Aaron Straderade here in just a second. But Adam, what are you hyped for? Is this have you ever done something like this before? What attracted you to it?
This is my first time canvassing. I'm so excited. Have you ever canvassed?
Yeah, with Destiny and Progressive Victory in the past, and then back in Kentucky a couple of times. Yeah.
This is my first time. So to anyone in chat who's thinking about whether they should come and they're a little bit nervous, it's also my first time. So we're all going to be in this together doing this. And it's sort of just going to be translating what I've done with MAGA people, but just trying to get people to vote. Just talk to them normally, just get them to vote, get them to turn out, right? And what attracted me is obviously the fact that our democracy is on the line. The U.S. feels like the last stand within a whole country's with a bunch of countries where it's like, if Donald Trump wins this next election, I think we can all agree that'll empower Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping. And it just feels like we need to all get out there to vote. Yeah. And Destiny is the reason I'm going. How about you?
I thought we had such a deep friendship. You're telling me Destiny. Listen, what he meant to say was, Josiah, you're the real reason. And then Destiny's he's like a distant second, I see how it is.
No, I just want to spend time with you, man. I was just it's a Trojan horse.
I get it. You didn't want to like come out and say it because then, it might make it seem like, you're too attached to me. I get it.
I can't play my hand too soon.
No, 100%. Before you dip out, I'm going to bring in Aaron as well. Straderade. Hi, Aaron.
Hello.
Aaron,
are you leaving, Adam? Did I miss the appearance?
No. He's going to hang out for a little while, and I just want you all to play off each other. Have you guys been in contact?
No, I saw your Twitter profile earlier today, and I asked if your name was like your last name was fake. Was it supposed to be like? Because I know you do street interviews. So I was like, oh, is it mocker? Like because you mock people on
no,
street interviews?
People always ask me if I'm like some political troll, and no, it's actually like the opposite. I do approach in good faith usually, but yeah. No, I've never met you. It's nice to meet you, and I'm glad we get to connect. You'll be there this weekend?
Yes.
So
I mean, I'm helping putting it on, so I feel like
she's one of the masterminds of it, really. I mean,
I did not know that.
Honestly, this is the way you should look at it. If it succeeds or if it fails, it's going to be on Aaron's shoulders, really. Cool. So if it doesn't do so well, we get to blame Aaron. If it does extremely well, I'll probably try to take all the credit. So you scapegoat when things don't go well. You take all the credit when it goes great. No, she's one of the organizers behind it. So with that in mind, Aaron, what way I described this is part of like a deep canvassing operation, right? Because obviously the election itself is in November. We're not even really at the primary stage yet, but the goal is to maximize eligible voter turnouts for a state that is competitive and that we must keep to prevent, full-on fascism from the GOP. Is that fair to say?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like it's the Electoral College every single year, every 4 years. we realize like, oh yeah, the system that we have right now is not very democratic and actually favors a minority of voters. And so I feel like all of us every 4 years are just scrambling to deal with the fact that we're beholden to like the Rust Belt and like collectively just like 1/4 of the people that even from those states want to turn out and vote. But that's why it's incredibly important that everybody does, register to vote, get out there and make sure that they're actually voting against the candidate that is easily the biggest threat this November, which is Donald Trump. Because it's looking more, I'm sorry, Nikki Haley, I can only go on so long pretending like, oh, she has a chance or whatever. I think at this point, everybody's realizing like, yeah, it's a rematch. And I just feel like it's a rematch between almost two incumbents. I know it's not possible, but like Trump announced the campaign so early in 2022 that this has been in the news cycle for so long. It's almost like there's like this dueling presidency going on to me.
Well, Trump still has control. He still has the whole Republican Party wrapped around his finger. So he has like soft control of Congress. We've seen that with the bills being passed over the past week. So he really is a threat, even when he's not in office. He's somebody that needs to be shown. Like the American people reject you wholeheartedly.
Oh, 100%. And the funny thing is, I mean, to Aaron's point, this is relatively unique. Trump is not the first president or first former president to run for a second term after losing his, stab at the consecutive, but it's the first time it's happened in modern history. And so usually there's a decisive incumbent advantage for the sitting president, but that is somewhat diminished by Trump standing. And then you add the cult on top of it, right? We've never seen such a helix between a political party and their leader. The Republican Party was not like this with Mitt Romney in 2012. It was not like this with John McCain in 2008 or even George W. Bush, I would argue. And he benefited from the post 9/11 patriotic fervor, right? I don't think we've ever seen such a devotion from a political party to one person before. So Donald Trump has actually a disturbing amount of like political advantage for the non-incumbent. And then I think he's also benefited from the fact that we just have very short-term memories as Americans. We have forgotten, I think, the pains and the stupidity associated with this man when we put him in the White House. So I think he's got a lot going for him that he absolutely shouldn't. And that's another reason why this election is going to be so razor thin and competitive. We cannot afford to lose Ohio at all. And so this is going to go a long way towards preserving it.
I think yeah. Sorry. I don't know what I was going to say. My bad.
Okay. I think you were like awed by all the wisdom and insight coming from me.
Yeah,
it was overwhelming. Great. You were being buffeted by it.
Yeah.
How much do you think the favorability of these candidates really matters that much? Because Biden's favorability is not looking that great. I saw a poll today that had him at 37. I've seen an outlier poll that has him as low as 33%. But I do know that I think H.W. Bush, when he lost his reelection bid, was at almost 90% approval. I'm not sure if that was with a general or I assume within his party. And he still obviously didn't pull out a second term, which in and of itself was an anomaly, but do you think that that's going to be, do you think their favorability ratings give you insight into which candidate is likely to be, to win in the general?
I don't know. I should probably look at those numbers much more closely than what I do. I know that Biden is still pretty low for any, like people say that, incumbent presidents are generally pretty low, like Obama was pretty low and so on and so forth. I think Biden is a bit lower than that. So again, I'm definitely worried, but I don't know what the correlation is between party favorability and the outcome of a particular election. I'm not sure.
I just want to add, what I was going to say is I honestly think Joe Biden's got such a massive war chest that as he starts to pump out ads, as he starts to ramp up the campaign, people are going to realize how chaotic Trump was. And they're also going to start realizing that Joe Biden is a little bit more energetic than the media portrays him. I think we need to start relentlessly circulating these clips of Joe Biden going in God mode. Like he gave a speech a few weeks ago where he was just on point the entire time. Those are the clips we need to be circulating as relentlessly as the Republicans circulate those bad clips of him. And Yeah, like my generation is really disillusioned, it feels like sometimes. And something I always say to them is if we don't vote in this next election, we won't have institutions to take control of down the road. So this is our chance to shape these institutions that we'll someday inherit. But what's up, Lycan?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Let me turn your mic up a wee bit on my end. Say something now, please.
Test 1 2 3.
Keep going.
Test 1 2 3. Test 1
He
2
still
3.
sounds kind of muted to me, and I have him maxed out. Chat, how does Lycan sound? I may have lost chat. Gotcha. Sorry about that. I don't know if like my restream like is collapsing or whatever, but like even though we have there it is. Okay. He's still kind of muted. Can you turn anything up on your end?
How's that?
There we go. There he is. That's
right.
better. Yeah. So Lycan will also be at the Ohio canvassing voter registration drive. And he is also somebody, I think, who, to Adam's point, values institutions. So, Lycan, before you weigh in on the voter registration drive, to Adam's point about the importance of institutions with respect to this election, I'll play the devil's advocate. They'll say, Lycan, you know, if we lose the Senate, if we lose the presidency and Trump and Republicans take power, we need not really fear for the sake of institutions because they, for the most part, you know, held up last time. Do you buy that argument?
No, I'll point to a few things. One is, I as a conservative myself, but later friends who remained conservative for years and years, it's don't worry about the courts. Nothing's ever going to change. You know, people are going to advocate for abortion to be taken away, but that's never going to happen. People are going to advocate for gun rights to be taken away. That's never going to happen. Well, that's like one from each side, right? And we have seen what happens when you get someone like Trump who creates, it's not just about the actions he took that McConnell took when it came to denying Obama a vote. And then later, Trump gets to go ahead and put someone else in. But then it's the atmosphere he created. That atmosphere he created led to January 6th. And that atmosphere he created led to Roe v. Wade being unnecessarily reviewed and overturned. And so I think that though Trump has shaken a lot of things up and put a lot of things on its head, and this is one of them, that there are a bunch of things we have trusted for so long, and those aren't the case anymore. I don't think we can just rely on, yeah, that's not going to happen in America. You know, this isn't Pakistan, right? We don't have the looming threat of a military coup overhead. It's like, no, yeah, the executive branch can kind of really screw things up in America, and we've seen that happen. So I think we do have a fear that if Trump gets back in office, he might continue the mudslide he already started.
No, so it's funny to your point. I'd forgotten that, you know, like the courts, when McConnell, you know, withheld Merrick Garland's seat and said that, you know, we don't do that during an election year. You're actually starting to see that same excuse in a completely different context. That's one of the reasons that Republicans are currently given for not passing this relatively conservative bipartisan border deal. They're like, hey, we just got to wait until the next election. So that excuse is starting to manifest itself. Like, Republicans are basically saying, and I think we can expect this to continue, that when it's an election year and Democrats hold any sort of semblance of power, we just can't do anything. We can't do anything that's popular. We can't do anything that they want to do or that has bipartisan support, so we can use it as a wedge issue for the election. They did it with the courts, and now they're doing it with the border. So let's see here, a couple of things.
I feel like the wedge issue that's going to be more on voters' minds is probably going to be abortion. As far I know that abortion rights groups are going to have opposition to restoring Roe, which is basically the Biden administration's line on it. But I really doubt that they're going to pick that fight this year or fight Biden on it because they just saw how electorally unpopular it is, even in states that they probably didn't expect, like Kentucky, where voters just don't seem to have an appetite for these sorts of like federal bans or more stringent restrictions. You know, they pushed so long for this to be like a states' rights issue. And now I don't know if it's of any surprise, but now that they're moving forward, trying to actually put in forward their agenda that probably always was the case, which was federal bans, they actually have, you know, that they've sold their voters on, well, we're just going to leave it to the states. And that's where everybody's, you know, even most right wingers seem to be at with that issue.
Yeah, and I don't know about the rest of you, but I absolutely don't trust. I think we have sufficient reason to believe that the whole leave it to the states thing will go left if they have sufficient. Like even Nikki Haley, who will certainly not be president because she won't win the primary, but even she said like the best answer she could give was, you all don't need to worry about it because we'll never have the margins to make it a reality in the first place. It was not an unequivocal no. It was if by some chance Republicans are able to cram through a federal abortion ban, then I'll sign it into law, but you don't have to worry about it because it needs 60 votes in the Senate. And this is something I want to be very clear about because, again, it goes back to institutions and really to what Lycan was saying too, which is that 60 vote threshold, you can do a filibuster carve out for any piece of legislation if you have the party votes to do it, right? So people say, well, you don't need to worry about that, Josiah, because Republicans really didn't do that when they had power. It's because they didn't need to. This is the argument that I get into all the time with moderates and enlightened centrists and people like that saying, you know, when Republicans had power, they could have, for example, repealing Obamacare. That's the big one I hear about a lot. They could have did a filibuster carve out. Well, they didn't need to because they were doing it as part of a reconciliation package, and not to get too geeky, but for reconciliation legislation, all you need is a simple majority. John McCain killed it with his, you know, infamous downvote. So they didn't have the votes to even do it with a simple majority. And then when people say, well, why didn't they do it with other pieces of legislation? It's like, what other legislation are Republicans interested in? Tax cuts, which they don't need. They can do that with budget bills, and they got that done. And they want to cram the federal judiciary with young conservatives. Republicans don't like legislating or governing, so they don't need typically to break the filibuster. They might just do it now. If they keep the House and you have a religious zealot in the form of Mike Johnson running the House, if you give them a Senate majority and you put a Republican back in the White House, why wouldn't they pass a federal abortion ban? And why do we even want to risk it? We have no reason to take these people at their word. Anyone want to weigh in on that?
I do think that you're right when you say that like the Republicans don't really put forth a policy agenda. I think past presidencies and certainly Trump's have demonstrated that mostly what they look to do is kind of the gutting of the administrative state so that every single social program or service or aspect of civic life and infrastructure that could potentially benefit average voters doesn't work functionally or is very difficult to access. And then they turn around, they say, see, this is why you don't want the government involved in your life because all these programs that we run terribly don't work. Then we have to gut them.
It's the ultimate grift. They get to destroy the government, campaign on how the government's destroyed, and then they get rewarded for it. And it's just like
by destroying the government more.
Right. And then Democrats are like constantly, it's almost like dealing with a cat. I feel like, you know, how a cat will like knock something off and it's just, but there's like a bunch of glasses. There are many glasses of milk and the cat's just knocking one off after another. And you're trying to clean it up and pour more glasses of milk. That's what we deal with the GOP, except cats are adorable.
True.
About the canvassing. So I know Aaron was in Georgia in the 2022 midterms, and I've canvassed before. Adam said he has not canvassed before. This will be his first time. Lycan, have you canvassed before? Or is this your first foray?
No, I helped with Steven's first canvassing event.
In 2020?
In 2020, yeah, the 2020, the what was it? The Georgia. The Georgia rerun.
Georgia round one. So from your experience, I mean, it's, 4 years out almost, how was it? If that was your first time canvassing, was it what you expected? Were you nervous at all? Did you like it? What would you want to tell people watching who may be thinking about potentially signing up?
No, it's really exciting. I mean, so what I was surprised to learn is that we had, I think at the time, organized, I say we very lightly, this was Steven and some other folks really coordinating it. I just went to help. But what they were able to do was organize one of the largest, and it was just a couple hundred people that came out and showed up, but it was one of the largest canvassing events. And these have huge impacts because with those kind of numbers, the amount of doors you're able to hit is incredible. This event here is shaping up to be even larger than I think any of the other ones have been. And so with those numbers, I think it's kind of cool to be able to be part of that, to say you were, part of a grassroots kind of movement to get out there, get people to vote. This event we're doing in Ohio is nonpartisan. This isn't right or left. It is a get out the vote kind of movement. It's knocking on doors and just saying, hey, There's an election coming up. It's an important year, as it is every year, right? The soul of the nation is always on the line. But getting people to get out there and vote, and it's fun, it's exciting. From one perspective, you get to say you had an impact, or hope you had an impact. On the other, it's you get to meet a bunch of other politically minded folks. I think everyone here that's been to one of these events has had a really great time, made new friends, and absolutely kind of help drive the future of their content. I believe that's been my experience.
No, 100%. I mean, that's where Aaron and I met. We became friends after that. Adam and I are definitely going to be BFFs walking away from this. I can tell.
That's
I'm going to be his number one contact. Lycan, I'm already number 2 on yours, so I imagine I will also be bumping up. Some deep bonds of friendship here. And actually, in all seriousness, like a lot of the non-content creator participants have also said, because of previous events, that they've forged some pretty good friendships. What about
That's not my experience with canvassing. Can I give mine?
Sure, yeah, please.
Okay, here's what canvassing is like to me. On a macro level, when you zoom out and you're signing up, it is exciting. When you're there, it's exciting. Until you actually start canvassing, and then you're like cold knocking on people's doors, and you're like, their dogs are barking at you, and you feel like you're ruining their day, and you just feel like a pushy like phone salesman of like, please do this thing for me, and you're interrupting their dinner or their breakfast, which that part sounds like it would be miserable, because it is. But it's very easy, especially when you're with friends, to get into a rhythm, to get used to it, to start to interact with the folks, realize most people are super nice. And just it takes a few minutes to kind of build that rapport. And it will surprise you how many people actually are interested in getting access to this information, registering to vote, and will hear you out on the things that you're bringing to their attention, especially when you point out just stuff that they will naturally have consumed ambiently. Just if they scroll on social media or open up any app on their phone, they know who Trump is, they know who Biden is, they know it's an election year. And you will get them thinking, and can be that person in their life that's like, have I registered to vote? Am I actually prepared to go to the polls? Where's my polling location? Where's all this info? And you, the canvasser, provide them with all of that. And with every single door that you knock on, being able to say, I knocked on like X doors, got X number of people registered and mobilized to vote is really exciting. And that you're part of like your one small part in this like huge operation that after a weekend, my experience with it was that just collectively, like me knocking on like 30, 40 doors, if everybody does that, that amounts to thousands of people whose lives that you've impacted and whose votes you could potentially get out to the polls for Biden.
Yeah, I'm excited to get politically activated and actually mobilize people, because I'm sure we can all agree with this. Like I spend a lot of time arguing with people on Twitter, on the internet, doing all of this. So it's going to be nice to make a tangible impact and actually get out there, because I feel like that's way more important than what we're doing. But I want to know, do you guys have any like really memorable experiences knocking on doors? Anything crazy that's happened, or really good experiences?
I don't know about crazy. Well, knock on wood, I have not had one bad experience there. I mean, actually, no, I'm sorry. I had one great experience, now that I'm thinking
Let's
about
hear
it,
it.
with a guy, an older gentleman who answered the door. And again, as Aaron says, it's nonpartisan.
Mhm.
And by the way, before I continue with this anecdote, I'm going to bring Pixie in. Can you all see her? Because I literally can't.
Nope.
No, I don't see her.
Pixie, can you, is your mic working? Can you say something? I did not hear her.
Something in your settings might be blocking this program, like from accessing your microphone and webcam.
Yeah, she says she can see herself in the chat. Pixie is also, by the way, one of the organizers, along with Aaron, of this event. So we were going to have her weigh in as soon as she's able to adjust the mic and things. But anyway, this anecdote. So a knock on the door. It's in Georgia. No, it's Wisconsin. I'm sorry, It's Wisconsin. And the Wisconsin election was also interesting too, because technically that election was nonpartisan, not just the door knocking event, because Justice Protasewicz was not running as a Democrat. She was certainly the liberal candidate. But we knock on the door and we're like, hey, this election's coming up. Do you know where to vote? And blah, 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 the whole spiel. Very quick. And the guy says, yeah, I'm well aware of this. I am not voting for her. I'm voting for the conservative opponent, who is a MAGA supporter, a Trump supporter. And he was not combative at all, but he was funny because he said, "My wife, it's unfortunate for you, you didn't get my wife to answer the door because she is a big Janet fan." And so we laughed and we talked for about 5 minutes about, I mean, the weather. It really wasn't even about politics. And then we both agreed we probably could have kept talking. And then I left, right? So this was somebody who knew about the election, had absolutely no interest in voting for my preferred candidate. But we had a really positive exchange. We shook hands. We laughed because we teased each other on the way out. Hey, man, hope you lose in this election. I'm like, hey, back at you, and nobody ended up crying, or hurling invectives at each other.
Can I build on that for a
Yeah,
second?
please.
So my job is basically, of course, as you know, to go to these Trump rallies and talk to people. And that is a very common experience that I find, where this person that you deem as the enemy, that you dehumanize online all the time, is really just like your aunt or your uncle who was born into a different situation and who has now been tricked into voting against their own interests. So, Josiah, I saw something that you tweeted a few weeks ago. It was in response to Mr. Beat. I actually wanted to debate you on this a little bit.
Oh,
So he said you shouldn't dehumanize Trump supporters, right? I think that's like the gist of what he said. I think you responded and you said you should dehumanize Trump supporters. Is that your position?
No.
Okay.
My response was that Trump supporters often dehumanize their opponents. And so it depends on how you use the word dehumanize. I have Trump supporters in my family whom I love, right? I don't dehumanize them. I genuinely love them. I've got 4 sisters, 12 nieces and nephews, a Republican stepmother. I grew up in rural Kentucky, so most of my family members and friends are conservative. And if they're politically active, they support Trump.
Yeah.
I don't mean dehumanize as in like they're, garbage or whatever else. But what I mean is, I can get pretty rhetorically aggressive when I'm having a conversation on screen and off screen with a Republican, and I'm okay with it. If I choose to show empathy and grace to Republicans, it is a personal choice, not because I'm morally obligated to do so. The way I think I phrased it is, no one is morally obligated to be empathetic, compassionate, and kind to the most cruel political movement in modern American history. If you choose to do so because you think it's just right or because you think it's politically effective, I think that's a fair argument to make. And that's why very often I am kind to MAGA Republicans, but I don't think that I am obligated to do so. I don't believe in the asymmetry. I fight it every step of the way. Basically, if you're going to be a jerk, you should expect other people to be a jerk back to you. And if you can't expect that, if you can't handle it, don't be a jerk in the first place. And that's the big beef that I have with a lot of current Republicans, particularly Republican elected officials. Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'll just say this as a sidebar. Today, she went viral. I did a video about it. It's doing pretty well, by the way. You all like and subscribe. Calling her out because she was complaining about Jamie Raskin. She's like, no, I'm not going to answer one of your questions, which always insult me and insult President Trump. But it's like, lady, you insult Democrats, not just elected officials, but Democratic voters all the time. We can't have this where you can dish it out but can't take it. So that's my position.
I saw Marjorie speak a few weeks ago, and can I cuss on here, or like lightly cuss? Or,
sure.
I mean, it's not even a cuss word. She literally said during her speech, "All Democrats are pedophiles," and the whole crowd stood up and started cheering. I didn't know if I could say that word, but
no.
Yeah, I agree that nobody's obligated to respect them, but it scares me sometimes when I see people on our side of the aisle being just as reductive as Republicans are. I see this in my comment section all the time. I'll post a clip where I'm talking to someone in good faith, and people in the comment section will be saying really nasty stuff that just mirrors the other side's rhetoric a lot. And eventually, as I grow a platform, one of my goals is to talk to my followers, like, hey, we don't need to be as reductive as Republicans are, because I know this is hard to hear. I know it's like some people, when I tell my grandpa this, he's a massive lib, super libbed up, watching CNN all the time. He gets really mad. I'm like, 74 million Americans voted for Trump. Not every one of those is a really bad person. Not everyone is an evil person. I talked to so many of them that, like I've said, just misled into voting against their own interests. I talked to a lady a few weeks ago who was she needed healthcare for her son. That's all she needed. She's like, I just wish my son was able to get healthcare. He has autism. And what I explained is do you think the government should be able to step in and provide a bare necessity level of healthcare? And she was like, of course. So it's I can inch these people towards liberal beliefs, but they think Democrats are evil. Yeah.
No. Listen, and obviously, and Aaron, you guys can weigh in. The only thing I would say in summation is I just want to be very clear. I don't hate MAGA Republicans. I think very often it's a cult. Again, and I say this from having grown up in red rural Kentucky and dealing with a lot of Trump supporters. They are persuaded to vote against their interests They are radicalized in the worst possible way. I think MAGA Republicans are very often victims of, just like everybody else, of the Republican Party. My contempt is for Republican elected officials, people who know better, people who are the thought leaders of the movement. I do have contempt for Republican Congress people and Republican senators, and I definitely want to apologize for that. As far as the civility politics, though, my general position is, if I choose to be kind to you, and you're part of MAGA, that is a choice I am exercising. I am not obligated to play by different standards, and I will viciously reject any attempt to impose double standards on me, because Democrats get double standards imposed on them all the time, and it makes things infinitely worse, and we have an inherently difficult job already. Is that fair?
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, it's really fair. And it's something that when I was a conservative, I used to think that talk like that was insulting, because it felt like you were accusing me of being incapable of my own thoughts, and that, I'm just being a sheep being led. But the reality is, we all look to our leaders, whether it's our political leaders, whether it's our thought leaders in news and media, people that we look up to, respect, have been watching for years. We trust those voices. So as you're talking about, Josiah, when those voices are misleading you for partisan hackery, when they're doing it just we talked about the systems, we talked about institutions. All this started, and again, conservatives might be offended by this, but this got started heavily in the 90s with what's his name, Rush Limbaugh, and then Newt Gingrich. Rush Limbaugh's kind of talk politics, so that's that thought leader perspective, and then our actual leaders, we have Newt Gingrich, weaponizing the budget, using Congress as a cudgel against the American people, against politicians of the opposition. That started then, and that divide, because you used to have conservative liberals and liberal conservatives, and they would be able to work together for years. Has there always been partisan hackery? Yes, but since the late 80s, early 90s, that divide has got wider and wider. And now people have a monetary incentive online, all these independent journalists, all these independent, thought leaders like Tim Pool and whatnot. They are incentivized to do this, and it kind of becomes a cycle, because a lot of these people aren't lying to you. They believe the shit they're spewing. But at the end of the day, if you trust these people, there are a lot of folks that are just getting their information from the easiest sources available, and it's leading to what we have now.
Are you telling me Tucker Carlson's Vladimir Putin interview won't be fair?
Oh, stop. I'm so upset about that. Yeah, no, that interview is going to be a prime example, right? Tucker Carlson was, now Aaron likes to make the point that the reason that Tucker Carlson was the most watched person in news is because old people turn their TVs on, leave them on Fox News, and don't turn them off. I personally think a lot of people were tuning in because I grew up in a household that, hey, kids, gather around, Bill O'Reilly's on, right? 8 o'clock.
It's Bill O'Reilly that they're watching. Tucker was Bill O'Reilly's successor, and the average age of the person watching Fox News is a fossil. They're super, super old, so they're just old
that
people
young, huh?
who have their TVs on. And I guarantee you, there are right now, as we speak, thousands of like doctors' offices, night clinics, and just random businesses that just leave Fox News on all the time, and restaurants and stuff like that. So I'm convinced that makes up like a lion's share of it, and that a lot of people don't actually listen to it, or to the extent that they're listening to it, it's like the way that people listen to The View, which is that you see a clip here and there, or you see it in those offices, and but yeah. Oh, let's introduce.
Yeah, so Pixie, I want to introduce Pixie here, because again, I don't know what overlap my audience has with everybody else. Like I deal with, every time I reference Destiny, I remember the one time I did it and I took it for granted, and my 86-year-old grandmother said, "Who the hell is Destiny?" because she obviously doesn't watch streaming. So I always feel like to like clarify who people are, even when they're bigger than me. So Pixie and Aaron are not only helping organize this event, but just in terms of content, you all should check this out if you'd like, debates and confrontations with conservatives. Pixie and Aaron have both been on the Whatever podcast face to face with Charlie Kirk, with was it Michael Knowles? Michael Knowles, right?
Dave Rubin.
Dave Rubin, Rave Dubin, the genius.
Candace Owens.
Who? Who was the other one?
Pixie debated Candace Owens.
Damn.
And we are nothing but super, super nice. You just have to go watch it for yourself. We're just so sweet. They're just falling over themselves to talk to us and debate us.
I think it's because they see Pixie walk into the room, and she's
so
psyching them out.
scary.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I look at them in the eyes and they feel that murder vibe from me, and like that makes them really happy.
So with that in mind, that's Pixie. Pixie, are you hyped for February?
I am
11th,
so
10th. We're
freaking
already in
hyped.
February. Sorry. I made it sound like it's a month away, but are you psyched for a couple of days away?
I am so freaking psyched. I am so excited. We have put so much work into this event. It's gonna come out. I think it's gonna come out really good. I'm like glowing. I'm like, yay! All the hard work finally is getting paid off. And yeah, I'm just happy.
Yeah, because I actually believe that. She actually has the lights out right now. The lighting that it's emanating from her excitement over registering people to vote. So on that front, Pixie, why is it? Because again, I've done canvassing stuff to get people to turn up to vote. This is again a bit different. It's deeper. It goes back further. It's to get people to register to vote. Besides the fact that you have to register to vote in order to vote, is why invest like the time and effort into this? Is this something, do you think it will have a material impact on the Ohio elections? Because
Um,
again, we're not telling people how to vote, just to register to vote.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely will. I think, I think this in the combination with the deep canvassing that's going to be happening that state will be able to influence people. I think a lot of people underestimate how much power there is in like having a few people show up every day, every other day to have like real conversations, to get like really into the community and to like talk and spread ideas that are good for people in general. Um, I feel like a lot of people underestimate streaming audiences as well and like the power that they have. You know, I had a conversation the other day that was like, oh, why are people investing in like live streaming? Why not just like more on TikTok? You know, people have like thousands of followers or more. And the thing is that when it comes to like people who are live viewers, they are much more willing to dedicate and put aside the time to actually do those asks that the streamer needs basically for their community and for community building. While most like viewers on TikTok will like see the video, like it, scroll past it, not really interact at like that really deep level. So I'm really excited to like have these audiences come out. I'm super excited to have these audience also, if they apply, like do the long-term canvassing as well, because like that's what we need. That's the change that we're looking for.
No, 100%. So is it fair to say, since you and Aaron are kind of much more administrative and have much more knowledge of the administration part than I do, are we still looking for people to show up and turn up and sign up for this event and for other events? Because I just put the link in. If we've reached a cap or something, I apologize, but what's the state of that?
No, we would love if more people signed up. Honestly, the more the merrier. Like we want those numbers. We want those numbers to be high. We want to be able to like be a show of force to the Democratic and other parties, being like, look what happens when you put your mind into it and invest in the right people in the right places. Like we will show up and do the work. So definitely, if you are able to sign up right now, please. Like every number actually really counts. Like it's actually really important.
And the best part is that even if you have financial constraints, PV is willing to help you out with that. If you just sign up through our link and you need to apply for financial assistance for hotel rooms and accommodations, PV is interested in helping out our canvassers with that. We're also going to have people that will help move and chauffeur people effectively from airports to the venues to the hotel to help get our canvassers where they need to be to get into the action. So as long as you sign up through the link below, you can see all of that info. And yeah, that's basically the only thing you have to worry about is getting yourself there. And we have a whole Discord set up to this operation. So if you just join the Discord and you need somebody to carpool with, there's plenty of people that are, I'm sure, nearby you. You just need to find them and see if they're interested in hopping in a car with you for 10 hours. And there's a lot to talk about. You guys can become great friends before you head out into the canvassing operation, then canvass together.
And if you're just considering it, but you've never been before and you're a little bit nervous, I said this earlier, but I've never been before either. We're in the exact same boat. We're both about to be doing this for the first time. So don't let that stop you. It's actually even better to like break the water, do it the first time, get out there. I think or break the ice, my bad. And I think it'll be really worth it. Yeah.
And the other thing is that we're not just going to be doing canvassing. We're going to be having community night events and a lot of different social engagements. People hang out before and after they get started canvassing. They grab lunch together. They exchange phone numbers. They exchange socials. And you really do feel like by the end of it, you have a new friend group.
Liking. I'm not sure if this will entice anybody. I'm not sure if you've thought about it. But what about, are you planning on bringing the old...
the Git Fiddle?
The old Git Fiddle?
You know, if it depends what rental car I grab when we're driving up tomorrow. So if I get something that'll fit, I might pack it. Just, you know, I don't want to be the guy at the party that always brings the guitar, but I mean,
that's the coolest guy at the party. What are you talking about? I'd definitely sit next to you.
I'd love to hear you play. Do you sing at all or no?
Yes, he does.
Not well, but
no, stop it. He's
That's
lying.
not true.
Dude, yeah. Okay, listen. Lycan is very honest, but do not trust him about his assessment of his own musical ability. So there you go. You're even going to get a concert, right?
We shall see. Yes, if the guitar fits, we'll get that.
Fair.
Concert. Hey, but actually, you will get this. Excuse me 1 second.
Sure. Oh, no,
I know what he's going to go get.
Now I'm excited.
Not that.
No, that's actually the standard uniform that he's wearing. Oh, you're bringing
That is
the pupper?
adorable.
Yeah, we're going to bring Eve.
If you come, you get to meet Eve.
Our Boston Terrier.
He's very pretty. Like
so Eve is also going to be I feel like that would be super effective. You know, if you take out Eve out for a walk while you're rigid.
Oh my God, more dogs.
100%.
Eve and Denver have to meet eventually.
Eve and Denver?
Denver, like Colorado, yeah.
That's
cute.
like that's the premise to a great sitcom. I feel like
Eve
the Denver and Eve show, or Eve and Denver. I think that's beautiful. Like
look at that
praise.
smile. Eve loves neck pets, neck scratches.
She does. She's a little groggy because I just grabbed her while she was sleeping.
Yeah, she's like, I don't know if this was worth it to show me off, but no, it's awesome.
Just give her a treat.
What about again? What about introverts? Yeah, I don't know if any of us would describe ourselves as introverts. I'm certainly not, but I know I get people who ask that, like, okay, what if I want to participate? I'm just kind of shy. Like, I'm not, the person to grab a microphone or a guitar and sing or do anything like that. You guys have any insight?
Yeah. So, I mean, people don't go out by themselves. Canvassers are in a group of 2 or more when they're going door to door. So, at the very least, you're going to have someone there with you. So, that can always be confidence boosting. You're not going through that experience of knocking on the door alone, and you can take turns. You can let the other person do it if they're more gregarious until you feel comfortable. But yeah, no one's alone out there doing this. Absolutely not.
No, yeah, you've definitely got support. That's the other thing too. I'm glad we mentioned that. Is at least in the past, they've been there have been like teams of people in like certain zip codes. And actually, I don't want to get over my skis on that, but Pixie, or Aaron, do you know in terms of like operational things what we can tell people, like what the plan is, if it's a central location, if we are going door knocking? Is there anything specific that you can tell people who may be looking for a bit more concrete details?
Yeah, to my understanding, we have 8 canvassing house leaders that are all gonna have their little like group of people that they're in charge of, basically. So you'll all be going like groups of like more than 2 people, ideally, to be able to go like canvas in a list that they're gonna give you. So really, you don't really have to think about it that much. Like, it's a canvassing house leader's job to basically be like, this is where we're all going, guys. You get to just show up and knock on the doors and have a fun time and do something that matters. So I think it's a pretty good deal if you're like afraid of like, oh no, not too much initiative. Like, don't worry, we got people that's their job to worry about, not yours.
And
we're
there's
mostly
training
concentrated in the Ohio 1st Congressional District, which is like the Blue Ash area. So it's like near Cincinnati, which has like a lot of urban sprawl. So that encompasses like a lot of different areas. But yeah, like everybody is going to be like carpooling together as they go from area to area. And there are going to be separate cohorts with all the canvassing house leaders that help get every group where they need to get going to really cover as much of that district as we can.
And there's going to be training involved. I mentioned that in the video that I did to like the promotion, but there is going to be formal training by actual experienced canvassers and canvas leaders. For those of you again who have never done it, and I think every time I've canvassed, I've gone and done it again. So it's like super simple. It's very helpful tips and hints and things like that. And again, you're definitely going to be, you're not going to be thrown out into the ether by yourself. You're going to be surrounded. You're going to be comfortable. And to Lycan's point, if you feel nervous about a particular door, or like you need to be warmed up first, then there will be other people there who can take the lead while you psych yourself up if you need it. But I bet you probably won't. I remember both in Georgia and in Wisconsin, there being introverts in the PV community or the DGG community who said afterwards that all it took was a couple of doors and then they were ready. And some of them actually made it almost like a de facto competition to see, who could get through the list and like get more people to answer doors and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think it's good. And I also think the purpose behind it too will really psych you up to know that we have a razor thin margin. Like we have no margin for error. Joe Manchin has announced that he is not seeking re-election. So we've lost West Virginia. There's not going to be a Democrat winning West Virginia, which means that we have to protect 7 incumbent Democrats to just keep the Senate. That is tough. So every little bit, folks, helps. If you can donate, or if you can sign up, if you can knock on doors, it's really important. No margin for error, and we can take nothing for granted.
And here's the other reality, unfortunately, of canvassing. Lots of times people are at home, people are sleeping in, people are at work, people are they just don't want to answer their door. So you might, especially with the first few, get a couple of duds before you actually get to some doors that are opened and people who are even receptive to hearing your message. So there is some breathing room in between even each door that you knock on to like compose yourself and hype yourself up to get ready to confront the next person effectively. So you'll get into a rhythm very quickly.
And if you're introverted, this is not speaking from experience, but just broadly, like it's really natural to be energized by other people. When you find a community of like-minded people, which we will be, you'll be energized by them naturally. And on top of that, we're in really good hands. I know Aaron and Pixie put in a lot of work to this event. I know Progressive Victory, the DGG community, put in a ton of work. We're going to be in great hands. So there's really no reason to be worried. But
all right, take it away, Lycan.
Yeah, so Capriel in chat asks if we are going to have any plans for a Michigan house. So right now we are taking this to Ohio. We're gonna try to crush it in Cincinnati, and there are plans to try and do this throughout the election cycle. Obviously, we want to see how this one goes. This is kind of our pilot program, but should this go well, which we do believe it is going to with the numbers we're looking at, we do hope to have more houses throughout the election cycle in states around the country.
Can I ask you guys, I might be traveling from swing state to swing state, Trump rally to Trump rally, so I might just be canvassing with you guys if I'm in that swing state. Is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely.
More than cool.
Okay.
Welcome.
The coolest, really. Let's see.
Wait, I have a question for Pixie. Are you pro dehumanizing Trump voters or supporters? That was the debate we were having before.
Damn it, Adam. Okay, wait a minute. Can we just say for context,
sure,
before Pixie answers, by dehumanizing, I mean getting rhetorically aggressive back if need be. Not canvassing, but like when, for political messaging. Like, Pixie, do you have a problem when President Biden calls out MAGA Republicans? Does that bother you?
I actually think that when we go canvassing door to door and we see a Republican, we should tell them that we hate them and we hope they go to hell. No.
She's kidding. That never happened.
No. I think I'm generally pro humanization. I think you should call out wrongness when you see it. Especially I think when you're talking about it in a macro scale, like if you're saying, like the Republican Party in general, I think it's easier to basically, I don't say play dirty because I don't even think it's dirty, right? I do think the Republican Party in general doesn't really care about your children, doesn't really care about social programs, doesn't really care about like the people that need help the most, right? Do I think every single Republican is like that? No, but I think it's fair to make like generalizations of the party when you look at the voting history of most of the party, of the representatives being not the best.
No, put it That's well put. That is very generous of Pixie. That was very diplomatically stated.
And I never got to answer.
Well, let's hear it.
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead, Aaron. All right.
I'm not going to say it's about really pro or anti dehumanization here. I will just say this. I have it separated into like two camps in my head. There's Trump voters and there's Trump supporters. Now, there's people in the Republican Party who voted for Trump because they generally vote Republican anyway. And so they just consolidated around who ended up being the presumptive Republican candidate. And that's the way that they've always voted. And they just kind of are going along to get along. There's that group of people. And I find that there's a lot of people within that group that are totally amenable to hearing you out, hearing what you have to say, seeing where you disagree, agree, and generally changing their vote or changing their mind on certain key issues. But when it comes to Trump supporters, I'm a lot less forgiving because they've made their choice, okay, in the same way I've made my choice. But to those people, I say, it's like I'm way further left than all of you guys even combined. So the pitch is that I have better reasons to hate Democrats than you do, and yet I still vote for them sometimes. So you should talk to me about where that middle ground is, and I can tell people why their reasons are silly or why we agree on the reason to dislike a Democrat, but it doesn't follow that you don't vote for other people within that party or that you are really as opposed to them as you actually think.
Yeah, so Aaron is morale captain here, as you can tell. We're gonna take that little tiara off you, okay? And you can collect that tiara, put it in a box, and we'll actually Adam should be the morale captain, right? Will you get the tiara when we meet you in Ohio?
No, we were all just dehumanizing Trump supporters in a group chat while you were talking, Aaron. So.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, exactly. You were excluded from it. But no, like to be super clear, you will not run into situations where you will need to get like debate confrontational with voters. And as a matter of fact, I personally look at it as if I get into a heated debate with a potential voter while canvassing, I have failed, right? The goal is to try to persuade them to register to vote if they have not done so.
What if the mechanism for doing that is debate?
Exactly. Like, if you thought about it, like, let's debate the merits of electoralism. And I say that as somebody who has very, very strong opinions on the current iteration of the Republican Party, as you no doubt are aware. But the goal is to be as diplomatic as possible, just make them aware that, hey, listen, voter turnout's important. You're an eligible voter. Here is where you can register to vote. This is why it's important. And really, I guess I'd want to conclude on this and make this the last tangent of the conversation, which is what's at stake? Because Pixie started to hint at it there too, like Republican voting records. And I know we all have opinions on this and threats to institutions. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to go around and we're going to say, what is really at stake based on the outcome of this particular election? It could be what Republicans want to do. It could be what Democrats will not be able to do if they're no longer in power. What is at stake here for you all, in your opinion, that people should be made aware of to help incentivize them to come out and participate in this? We're going to start with Adam. I'm going to put Adam on the spot here.
Cool. So there's two pieces to this, I think. I'm 21 years old, so I really want to inherit institutions that work. I want to inherit institutions that are functioning. And if Donald Trump wins this next election, I'm not sure that'll happen. So this is an opportunity for us to take these institutions, for people my age, to be able to mold them how we want them, so that when the day comes that we're able to take them over and inherit them, we're able to pass the legislation that we want. On top of that, like, just really broadly speaking, I view America as the last stand in the liberal world order. And if Trump wins, I already mentioned this earlier, that will empower people like Vladimir Putin, people like Xi Jinping to act on their authoritarian urges. So electing Joe Biden not only secures the institutions for my generation, but it sets the precedent that authoritarian strongmen will not be voted in Western democracies. So that's just my take. Yeah.
All right, fair enough. Now, Pixie, what about you? Is there any specific policy or anything what's at stake here?
There is so much at stake. The first things that come to my mind are basically abortion rights. We already saw what the Supreme Court has done when it comes to like people's right to secure an abortion. You've heard Trump and you've heard like other basically Republicans kind of oscillate between, oh, should we have a federal abortion ban or not? Like, they want a federal abortion ban? I'm 99% sure. I mean, a lot of them are even against basic contraception. Like, that's how crazy the Republican Party has gotten. So I feel like if you care about like women's like rights and autonomy. To me, that comes up clearly. Another one that people don't like when I mention, but it's true. I feel like if you care about like Israel and Palestine, Trump has said insane things. Like, if you think the situation is bad now, like just see some of the statements like Trump has said about like basically wanting to annihilate Palestine completely. Like, he's not shy about it. So I feel like whether it be like at home or abroad, we have like people's like very basic like human rights and lives really at stake. And I just, yeah, I don't want a future like that. I want a good future personally. I know it's crazy.
No, I think it's fair. All right, Aaron, do you have anything in terms of, what Republicans may do if they're in power, what Democrats will not be in a position to do if they're out of power? What's at stake here?
I think the most compelling thing to me and biggest surprise of Biden's presidency was his decisions related to the NLRB, or the National Labor Relations Board. It's currently kind of on its way to kind of go off course because there's been many challenges to the institutional legitimacy of the NLRB itself. So it's really important, I think, to have members of Congress, of members of the Senate that are willing to stand up for workers' rights, workers' protections, workplace safety, and just basic provisions that should be afforded to all workers in America. So I think that's, to me, like one of the top priorities.
Yeah, so I'll just add to that before I turn the mic over to Lycan, which is with respect to Biden's pro-union, pro-worker policies, a couple of things to consider. More people are eligible for overtime compensation. I think it's north of like 3 million people because of his NLRB decisions. They have seriously gutted union busting. I think the ruling from the NLRB, because of President Biden's appointees, are, if a company attempts to engage in pro-union busting, the Department of Labor will effectively have considered the union formalized. So it's like, if your workers want to create a union, you have to let it be a fair vote. And if we catch you engaging in any sort of union busting, we're just going to say, screw the vote. There's a union in your company. That's huge. Okay.
And well, I do have one more reason.
Sure.
Student debt cancellation. So the Biden-Harris administration has actually greenlit like additional funds to be distributed and given to students that need relief, managing their student loan debts, coming out of college, coming out of graduate school, and just different people within the country that are qualified. If you speak to any college student that was attempting to get access to programs like this, to Pell Grants, to funds necessary to debt relief, under President Trump, his Secretary of Education was Betsy DeVos. All of that came to a screeching halt for a lot of different reasons, but certainly not least because she's very, very friendly with like pro-charter schools, very interested in like privatizing education. Just that change from one administration to the next made a huge difference. Like there are plenty of graduates now that if you talk to them, probably heard nothing under the Biden administration about any sort of student debt relief or cancellation, even if they'd put in the request for those types of funds. But under the Biden administration, unprompted, they were finally seeing movement with respect to getting that student debt relief that they're entitled to.
All right, Lycan, what about you, man? Anything you want to add in terms of things that Republicans will be able to do if they win these elections, or the Democrats will not be able to do that should be done?
I mean, it's going to come down to what we talked about at the beginning. One of the major things for me was January 6th, right? When I was a conservative going into Trump's presidency, I was a progressive leaving Trump's presidency. And that was kind of the culmination of everything I said would never happen, was any kind of serious erosion of the democratic process or the country as we know it. And I think if we dig deep to our patriotic cores, the sanctity of our elections and the voice of the people is one of the highest and most important values that we have. And Trump spit in the face of those values. So seeing him return to power would, as ominous as it sounds, getting to see him finish what he started. We're on this path now, and I don't think that it would be wrong to say it's definitely going to go horribly awry if he gets back in office. But if it took 4 years, that's where we ended in 4 years. And if that's where we're picking up when he returns to office, I don't want to see what 4 years after looks like.
100%. So some things that I'll just put a pin on there off the top of my head. So obviously the institutions, those are incredibly important. This is frustrating because I hear prominent conservatives, Destiny had that debate with Ben Shapiro, and Ben Shapiro stupidly and dishonestly appeal to the fact that simply because institutions held in round one, cosmic law dictates that they'll hold in round two. That's stupid. People use the expression guardrails, and my metaphor all the time is think of actual guardrails. If somebody plows a Ford F-150 into guardrails on a highway, you know, the police don't toss that guy a second set of keys in a bigger truck and say, try it again. They say, you know, they arrest that person or take them to the hospital. You're not given another chance right afterwards to try to do this. And then the guardrails have to be reinforced. So this idea that because Trump failed in round one doesn't mean that he will necessarily fail in round two, because he's already learned, or said he's learned from his mistakes, which is that he has, you know, he will not appoint institutional loyalists to his cabinet. He will appoint Trump loyalists, people who are in the cult and loyal to him. And institutions are maintained by people in critical positions. So this idea that good faith will see us through, or, you know, we're in Harry Potter or Little Mermaid where contracts are just divinely enforced, it's just not the case. And anyone who says otherwise is just completely wrong. So there is a threat to the institutions.
Did y'all already talk about Project 2024?
No, I mean, I have on my channel, but not on this stream. We probably don't have enough time to go super in depth on it. If one of you wants to take a crack at like a 30,000 foot view of what Project 2025 is.
Can I ask a question about it that I was going to ask earlier?
Sure.
Do you guys think we need to have a more cohesive narrative about Project 2025 heading into this election, not only with the mainstream Democrats, but us as well? Because I feel like the average voter doesn't understand that, or isn't even aware of it. Even a lot of Democrats, like my friends that I talk to, are like, what's Project 2025? Seems like everyone should know about this, right?
I think the important thing to note about Project 2024 is that a lot of is connecting it back to January 6th. So I think there are some people who either tend to downplay or not see the significance of what occurred on January 6th. And I think kind of coupling those two together and saying that Project 2024 and these other right-wing groups, interest groups that have a vested interest in enacting Trump's vision, despotic vision, for America is kind of the natural conclusion of empowering a base to the extent that he did. And didn't just end with January 6th. That was kind of the culmination, and we're still seeing like more of the tides turning, and still a lot of people have a vested interest in seeing that plan come to fruition. They didn't just drop it because they didn't succeed. Like Trump said, or like Josiah just said, Trump actually feels like, no, I've learned. Sorry.
I know that was the most offensive thing. I mean, you and I like to banter, but that was the most painful thing you've ever said to me.
Yeah, accidentally thinking that you're Trump. Sorry.
Yeah. That's Aaron. That's just not right whatsoever. But I think it is hard to put Project 2025. I think we have to do it. Like we have to figure a way to.
Wait, is it 2024 or 2025? What year is it?
Project 2025, because he'd be inaugurated in 2025.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's a 1,000-page PDF, right? That's pretty hard to synthesize. And then if you get too, I don't want to say reductive because it's pretty accurate, but if you just call it the fascist playbook, then people may think it's just too nebulous. But like certain things, they want to strip employee protections from the federal government. So the fact of the matter is, and this is a good thing, we no longer have a patron system, at least nearly to the extent that we did in the 18th and 19th century and early 20th century. We have an administrative state comprised of experts who work bipartisan, who ensure the peaceful transfer of power and the functioning of government. That way, on January 20th, you don't have thousands, tens of thousands, millions of employees shifting from one administration to the next. There has to be a continuity of government. Donald Trump wants to strip, and Republicans in general want to strip those protections and make everyone an at-will employee of the president, which goes back to institutions. So imagine a situation where the entire executive branch is a fireable at-will employee of the president of the United States. And then you have a bad faith president who will just fire somebody for not doing what he wants, even if what the president wants is illegal. Those employee protections exist for a reason. I wouldn't trust a Democrat with at-will hiring and firing prerogatives over the entire federal government, nor would Republicans. So why on earth would we grant that power to the opposing party? It's dangerous. It's insane. It's something that can be abused. They want to absorb independent agencies back into the executive branch. So like the FCC, Donald Trump has talked about, using the power of the executive branch, the Department of Justice, the FCC, to investigate news agencies and journalists who have criticized him. Imagine, conservatives, if you're watching, probably not, but if you are, imagine President Biden comes out today and says, hey, Ben Shapiro, Daily Wire, I think you guys are full of shit. And so since I'm the president, the most powerful man on earth, and you're not, I'm just going to order my Justice Department to investigate you. How would Ben Shapiro react? Would he say, okay, gang, well, it's just rhetoric, gang? No, he wouldn't. He'd freak out. So Ben Shapiro, if you were an honest person, would be like, huh, should a Republican have that power too? A principled person would say no. So that's something else to consider. Do we really want presidents to have the power to investigate the media when the media is critical of them, or the Federal Reserve, the people who set the interest rates in this country? Do we want a president to be able to issue a directive to the chairman of the Federal Reserve to say, I need you to raise the interest rates to hurt my political opponents during an election year, or lower it to benefit me during an election year, and so on and so forth, to say nothing of what they want to do in terms of like implementing a pretty conservatively Christian agenda in the federal government and through the federal government into the rest of the country. There's a great video essay by a person who breaks down Project 2025. I will also be sure to link it. It's really, really good. It's about 40 minutes long. Definitely worth your while.
Do you guys want to work on a video debunking Tucker's interview when it comes out? I was thinking that'd be a pretty good concept.
That'd be lovely.
I don't know if I have the patience to watch it all, but I would definitely retweet it. I think the four of you should absolutely watch that interview and pour over every second and just let me know what to complain about.
It might come out while we're together.
Oh God. I don't know. I don't know if I want to watch. That would make me very sad.
I think Aaron made the most potent point. Just imagine what would have happened on January 6th if the government would have been full of Trump loyalists. His plan would have succeeded, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? Why? That's the thing. Like, again, to your point and to Lycan's point, if these institutions are comprised of Trump loyalists, why wouldn't it have succeeded? And it's just, and to say nothing, something else to consider is the Supreme Court, right? So right now there's a 6-3 conservative supermajority in the United States Supreme Court, and it's entirely possible that if Trump wins or the Republicans win, we're going to see strategic retirements. People like Justice Alito and Justice Thomas, right? And then that means Trump can find 2 more young far-right Republicans, and then that majority can be preserved even longer. Think about it. We have not had a liberal majority in the United States Supreme Court for 50 years. We have to win the presidency and the Senate as much as possible because we desperately have to change that. But I also support changing the size of the court as well. So that separates me from the president, unfortunately.
Hey, I'm for abolishing the court, so I'll take it one step further.
Oh,
I don't think it should be. It's the least democratic institution that exists still.
Well, every nation has an iteration of the Supreme Court, but I support radical reforms to the Supreme Court. There's no question about it. Like term limits, expansion. We used to have a Supreme Court justice per circuit, and we have 9 justices now, but I think 12 circuits or 14 circuits. So there's definite room there. Let's see, as we're wrapping up here, are there any questions anybody saw that are comments that I know a lot of people are engaged. I appreciate that.
Is Amy still here? Earlier in chat, Amy was debating a bunch of people, and she was like, can someone tell me what makes Trump an authoritarian? And
I did see that.
I just want to say, before Trump was even elected, he wanted to, I'm pretty sure, deport people who burn the American flag. So, yeah.
I believe people with this because that's something that reminded me of this. There's been a lot of complaints from Republicans about Trump being kept off the ballot in certain states or whatever. It's certainly not anything sweeping. It's not across all 50 states. Trump got famous before he got heavily involved in politics with championing the birtherism movement, which its natural conclusion is that if Obama is not part of this country, he doesn't get to be on the ballot. So I see that glaring hypocrisy with it, and I don't feel like it gets called out enough that Trump, of all people, is probably the last person to complain about getting his name taken off the ballot. Anyone related to him or a champion of his.
Yeah. Well, he's also talked about taking away birthright citizenship from people. Specifically Puerto Ricans. But I think that within itself is extremely dangerous. Because if I can take your citizenship away from birthright, where does that leave us, right? It's very prone to political corruption to be like, oh, well, you don't really have a right to be a U.S. citizen because you were born here, and I don't really like your point of view, so get the fuck out,
Pretty much.
No, it's insane. I mean, there again, people. It's so funny. People say, well, Pixie, don't worry about birthright citizenship because it's a an interpretation of the Constitution. But it's like, again, the Constitution is not self-enforcing, and if you have the most powerful man on earth effectively unshackled, why couldn't he effectively, for all intents and purposes, really narrow birthright citizenship, or even attempt to do so, or with a sympathetic Supreme Court who are supposed to be on paper the final arbiters of the Constitution? Why is that outside the realm of possibility? And also, even if it's not 90% likely that Trump would do all these things, the fact that it's greater than zero, the fact that we're in double digits in terms of likelihood, is just too much, folks. There's no need. Very clearly, I want to be very clear. This iteration of the Republican Party, in my opinion, there is no rational basis to vote Republican. In every election in this country, and I do mean literal, from local dog catcher to senator, there's just no need. They need a timeout for a while, in my opinion. So that should also motivate you. In every election where you're an eligible voter, you should vote blue. You just, that's my stance, though.
How much did the DNC pay you to say that?
$80 billion.
Yeah.
I am that war chest
It
that
would
you
be
talked about.
$8 billion wasted because he would say that even if somebody was paying him not to say it.
I would pay to say it. I would pay the DNC to say it into a microphone. Just like let me rant for a few minutes about how much I dislike elected Republicans in this moment.
They pay me. No, sorry.
No, please go ahead.
I was gonna say they pay me in stockpiled military equipment like they do Ukraine. That's what I get.
That's where the bloated military budget's coming from. It's going to you. Yeah.
I can never get that hyped about Democrats because they're too like milquetoast for my taste, but I do despise Republican politicians and policies enough that is always a prime motivator for me to like get out and vote.
Hey, and that's the other thing, folks. People may bust your chops about, you're not voting for Joe
The
Biden.
candidate you're voting against.
And I'm like, vote's a vote, baby. It doesn't matter. It counts just as much if it's an anti-Trump vote versus a, staunchly, like Adam, for example, has Biden paraphernalia on under that pink hoodie right now. Like he is decisively pro-Biden. That's the thing. Adam and Aaron are united against a common electoral foe, and their votes are going to count just as much as each other, regardless of the motivation.
And if you're a Republican and you just cannot vote for Biden, you should look into the Libertarian Party. Anyone but Trump.
And that's a great motto to have. Yeah, definitely. All right. Anything else as far as like the event itself? I guess I'll throw the mic back to Lycan, Pixie, and Aaron, since again they're part of the organizing efforts. We'll go in reverse order. Lycan, is there anything you want to say as a final shout out as far as this event while I spam the link in chat?
No, just if you're in the area, if it isn't too far a drive for you, come hang out, have fun, do a little bit of door knocking. You're not required to stay there forever. So if you just want to come, show up, knock a few houses, every little bit helps. So yeah, let's see you in Cincinnati.
Appreciate it. Pixie?
Sign up. Okay. It's what is it? It's really important that you do so. That way we can keep track of like how many people are coming. That way we can keep track of being able to like feed everyone basically and make sure that everyone is like going to the right places and assign you properly. Every single person matters. I know that sounds corny. It's true. It is true. I wouldn't be saying it otherwise. So don't be shy to just click that link and sign up.
Okay.
I want to
Aaron?
say that Ohio is going to be the place to be Super Bowl weekend. It's not going to be on your couch. It's not going to be in front of that game. Anybody who's here watching this live stream doesn't even care about those things. It's about getting out there and mobilizing voters who are just dying to vote against Trump. At least that's what all the polls suggest, because Trump is ridiculously unpopular. His policies are ridiculously unpopular. So what other choice do you have but to tell people like, hey, you shouldn't just answer to a poll that you don't like him. You should actually go out there and vote against him.
Actually, while we're on the subject, because I do want to clarify that I have had some people, I've seen comments say, what about the Super Bowl? There actually won't be a scheduling conflict there as far as like the actual drive itself, right? Because the Super Bowl will be like at 6 p.m. Sunday, right? Pixie, I don't want to overspeak. Well, is there a scheduling conflict with the actual event itself in terms of knocking on doors and stuff and the Super Bowl?
Not in terms of knocking on doors, I believe. I think either way, you get to pick what shifts. That's a beautiful part of signing up. You get to pick what shifts you can do. So if you have a commitment on Super Bowl Sunday, just don't sign up for Sunday shifts and you should be A-okay. Beautiful, good, amazing. Mwah.
Actually, Super Bowl Sunday. So if you guys are a 90s kid, right, there was an episode of Real Monsters called The Big Wave. And the whole premise of it was that at Super Bowl, on Super Bowl Sunday, as soon as they get ready to set up for the halftime show, everyone goes to the bathroom because they've been sitting there to watch the whole game, and they flush their toilets, and the sewers are flooded, and they have a big surfing competition. We as canvassers, hundreds of us, will be lining up in front of doors, watching the thing on our phones, and the moment that it goes to halftime, we're going to knock on the door because they are getting up and they have no excuse not to come talk to us.
We are the halftime show, folks. Forget Usher. We're the halftime show. We're
The
going to
real blue
usher
wave.
these people to voter registration.
We should have a jersey for each team and put on the jersey that we need. Like figure out which team that person supports and just pop it on real quick.
100%.
Like, we're on
Like
the same side.
have them both on, and just you take which one off.
Look in the window
100%.
real quick.
I think it's great.
Do I skip 40?
Actually, and Lycan can be walking around with his guitar doing an acoustic rendition of "Yeah," you know. So yeah, 100%. I think it'd be great.
Why don't we just turn it into a caroling thing? Like, why don't we just pivot right now? And
That'd be beautiful. Pixie has to be lead on that improvisational talent there, as far as like just like random, like she's like the Wayne Brady of the movement. Like, you ever watch Whose Line Is It Anyway? You know, just like random bursts in a song.
Can I
That's
say really
Pixie.
quickly? First of all, before I go, I really enjoyed meeting all you guys and talking to you guys, Aaron, Pixie, Lycan. And Lycan, I really appreciate you setting up the event, as well as Pixie and Aaron. All of you guys put in so much work. Amazing. I can't wait to meet you guys in person as well. And I can't wait to meet you guys in person. Register some voters. Great talking to you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Excellent.
All right, guys, if there's nothing else, we're peacing out. Please sign up. I'm going to spam the link. I'm going to put it in the description. This VOD will be available. By the way, Adam, everybody, you guys can make use of this VOD on your own channels, your own social media, to whatever extent it'll be publicly available. And yeah, appreciate it. February 10th and 11th, Cincinnati, Ohio, Congressional District 1, sign up. There will be some sort of assistance for certain functions. Again, real quick, what were they, Aaron and Pixie? Was it housing assistance or
Yeah, financial assistance for people who are in need of hotels, and we're going to have people that are chauffeuring everybody to the locations that they need to, carpooling. So it's a community effort, and everybody can get involved. It's definitely accessible to anybody of all backgrounds.
Perfect. I appreciate it, everybody. Thank you very much.